All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everybody. My name is Natalie Flores. I'm an early childhood education specialist at Texas Education Agency with the Division of Early Childhood. I am joined today by my partner who will be supporting you in all this. This is Scott Bodnar. You've been hearing from him talk about barbecue. Our Amplify support team today consists of Donna Bright, Alan Stadmauer, I think I got that right, Ray Rodriguez, and Andrew Benesh. And our district partners that you'll be hearing from today, they're going to offer some testimonials for you, are from HEB ISD, Clint ISD, and Aldine ISD. And so we'll do some brief introductions. I'll kick it off to the Amplify team in just a second so they can introduce themselves too. But really just to walk you through our sort of mini loose agenda, Amplify is going to provide an mCLASS overview. If you have questions too that are outside of the literacy screener within mCLASS, you're welcome to ask those as well. We have allotted 15 minutes to the Q&A, and you are welcome to ask whatever you would like in terms of how it relates to mCLASS's work and how it can work for you. And just on the bottom here, it says stay in touch. If you have any questions whatsoever after this, you're always welcome to email our TEA inbox, earlychildhoodeducation@tea.texas.gov. You can also visit our website, Data-Driven Instruction in ECE. It's hyperlinked here, but we'll add that link into the chat box momentarily. That Data-Driven Instruction site in ECE is really helpful for everything you need to know about assessment in pre-K through second grade. Of course, you can get in touch with the Amplify team as well, texas@amplify.com. And we've also hyperlinked their mCLASS Texas Edition website in here. So we will send that into the chat box. But I will go ahead and send this over to the Amplify team now. Oh, wait, actually, I'm sorry. I have one more slide, just a second. A couple of norms. You may have noticed participants are muted. Our presenters will be unmuted. Please submit your questions through the comments section. And even if you're like me and you can't think of a question right away and it comes like later in the middle of the night, feel free to email any of those inboxes that we're sending your way. Our questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. Doesn't mean you have to wait till the end to ask it. If you really need to get it off your chest, you can send it in the chat box right away. And just so you know, this is a recorded event, and those FAQs, those questions that you send to us in the chat, we will provide answers for them along with the Amplify team and post them to our website, hopefully by the end of the week. So if you have some friends that were really interested in joining but are unable to because it happens, this will be available for later recording. Okay, so now I will kick it off to our Amplify team. There we go. And Donna, you're welcome to share whenever you'd like.
Great, thank you so much. Make sure you can see that. Great. What I'll have us, our team is here, as Natalie has said, and as we're each doing a section of this presentation, so I'll let us introduce ourselves at our section just in the interest of time and getting to the content that we know is important. But we're excited to have you here. We are here to talk about mCLASS Texas Edition, the early literacy assessment and screener, and also answer questions as we get to the end of this, but excited to have you here to learn more about us. So today, what we will be hitting is what is mCLASS Texas Edition. We'll just take a minute to talk about that. We're going to dig into how we can use that and how it supports your screening for risk. We'll look at classroom action for all students, where you'll actually be able to see the platform, get a nice demonstration of it, see the ease of the measures and everything that's inside the platform. We'll dig into some leadership supports, and we'll talk about the support and training that's available for our products. Within that, we also have, as Natalie mentioned, some districts joining us to talk about their experience, and they'll be at different points during the presentation. So we're excited to hear from them as well. So what is mCLASS Texas Edition? When we think about this, the one thing to know is that we are the only TEA approved free alternative reading diagnostic tool for kindergarten as legislated by House Bill 3. So there's KIA and mCLASS kindergarten, as well as we have a Texas edition that's approved for grades 1 and 2, a free alternative as well. So what that gives you is this great single point solution. As you're looking at this K2 package, you're looking at being able to satisfy kindergarten readiness, your universal literacy screener, your dyslexia screener. It's one tool, one reporting platform, consistent looks at data, consistent reports for teacher. And most importantly, what we're hearing from folks, and we'll talk a little bit about this, is that instant data and some instant actionable next steps for teachers around instruction to support students. So that single point solution has been really important for districts to get the movement they want in literacy. Currently, we're serving over 350 LEAs across this great big state of Texas. It's huge. And then we're right now serving 325,000 students. So a lot of people involved in mCLASS Texas and getting the support they need to move the dial on literacy. So when we think about our literacy screeners across Texas, it's about that screening for risk as well. And when you join mCLASS, you can be assured you're becoming part of a big family across the nation. We currently have 1.4 million students that are part of this platform. In fact, 7% of all K2 public school students are assessed with mCLASS. Additionally, mCLASS is a K6 platform, so when districts want to opt in beyond that K2 look, they have that single solution again for that K6 look, similar reports, similar supports, teachers across grade levels can talk, the assessment makes sense, the skills make sense. And so know that it's a big family across the nation when you join. Also important to districts has been this idea of the comprehensive nature of mCLASS. We meet all of the language and literacy requirements for K1 and 2, and all of the dyslexia screening requirements in this one tool. All of the measures are delivered and administered in a developmentally appropriate fashion. So when you're thinking about kindergarten, what does that look like all the way up, as I've mentioned, to 6th grade? But if we think about K1, 2, we're thinking about the developmentally appropriate nature of these assessments. We cover phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, and comprehension. We have an oral language measure, which covers the listening comprehension for dyslexia. And as well, we have online group administration tools of spelling and vocabulary, spelling specifically to round out that dyslexia screener, and vocabulary to provide that additional information as you're thinking about students and their approach to literacy. Really powerful, and this is where we hear a lot of feedback from teachers. This is teacher administered and digitally scored. So teachers are still working one-on-one with students in a very quick fashion, 6 to 7 minutes per student to complete the assessment, and then have all of the information they need to drive that instruction. The power that we're hearing from teachers is that I've sat and listened to my student read, whether it's been face-to-face or remotely, because we've been able to deliver this remotely across the state this year. And I know what my students can and can't do because I'm listening to them in these quick probes. And I have a really great path forward. And I feel like I own that data. I think that that's been an important part around this teacher administration piece. So what we want to talk about here is the heart of mCLASS is our partnership with the University of Oregon. We partner with them around research, around design, around assessment delivery, what the platform looks like. And these measures are created, both DIBELS 8 and EDEL, the Spanish assessment, are created by the University of Oregon. And they are updated and have been updated and specifically validated for dyslexia. So that work continues with them. We're continuing to develop EDEL in the Spanish assessment. And so that's just really a nice piece to know about the research and that partnership that we have with the university. So what that means is if you think about the dyslexia requirements in the Texas handbook, we have you covered. We have you solidly covered in that comprehensive nature, and we're covering all of the components that you need to look at when you're moving forward with that dyslexia screening, as well as your literacy screening. As we think about this, we've also crosswalked these, and this will be available for you on that download, all of the measures and how they crosswalk into those requirements. They support you in that dyslexia screening. They also support you in your early reading indicator reporting. So we've got you really covered on that end. And as we think about this, I'd like to turn to one of our district partners, LaDonna Schwobel from HEB. She's going to talk a little bit about her experience using mCLASS as a screener and supporting their work in the dyslexia screening.
Okay, hi everybody, I'm LaDonna, and I've been in HEB for my career, 27 years, but about 15 years of that we've been using Reading 3D or Amplify Reading as our platform in HEB for collecting early reading data. And HEB is a very data-driven district in that we, all of our goals, everything's set on data. So we love the fact that we can collect that data at the district level and make district decisions for what we need to do in the curriculum and that sort of thing. But then, of course, the power is also given back to the teachers that they know the data that they need to know to have actionable data for their students. And so I know that Donna was talking a little bit about how many students are in the program. And this year with COVID, knowing what kind of progress our students are they making, average progress, above average progress, and that 1.4 million, I think she said, students that are in the program. So we can compare our students with that big pool of students across the United States and see, are we making adequate growth in a year when we know that our kids started behind and still have gaps to fill. As far as using it in the classroom, it's really pretty quick and seamless to administer. It's easy for the teachers to understand it. The progress monitoring is built in so the teachers can go back and see if their interventions are working. And I don't know if they're going to talk about it later, but the intervention tools are really strong, including Amplify Reading, the computer program that we're new to that this year, but our teachers love it. And we use it for our dyslexia screener. It's easy to, they take the data, Amplify takes the data and gives it to TEA, so we don't have to do a lot of fiddling with the reports to get them there. And it's really seamless. And I don't think we would be where we are without Amplify Early Reading. So.
Thank you so much, LaDonna. We appreciate that. So at this point, we're going to move on, and I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Alan from Amplify, and he's going to actually take you into assessment in action and talk about what the platform looks like and demonstrate the assessment as well.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alan. Thank you so much for joining today. So, let me set up, we're going to walk through how the assessment is done. I'm going to take a look at the teacher's perspective on the data. Andrew Banesh, who's also part of the team, will take us a little bit later at the district level. The first thing is, let me set it up, right? So Donna was talking about the idea of teachers working with students one-on-one, which is incredibly valuable because they're really hearing how students read directly to them as opposed to multiple choice questions. It's also gentle on the child because students, especially now more than ever, crave that time with their teachers, even if it turns out to be remote over a video screen. But also because it's very short from the student's point of view, right? You're sitting with a lot of students one-on-one, but the child is spending 6-7 minutes and going back to their reading. The way this sets up is the teacher has a device. We've designed it for touch screens like an iPad, a Chromebook with a touch screen, but it'll work just fine on a laptop and a mouse. the student is going to actually have printed materials. So you're seeing, for example, here a set of non-words that we use to assess, the University of Oregon uses this to assess both letter sounds as well as decoding. These are downloadable from the website, or we do offer for sale printed bound materials on it to just keep it simpler. And now let's take a look about what that actually would look like in person. So we're going to do a video of Karen assessing Lee, who's a first grader, with phonemic segmentation. So she's going to say a word, he's going to divide it into phonemes. We're going to start with a progress item. I'll stop to narrate periodically, but some themes to keep an eye on are ease of use from the teacher's perspective. Keep an eye on student engagement. You can kind of see how Lee starts out here, but also think about we're not going to see the whole video, but things like the number of items and words you can actually cover when you're doing it in this format.
The sounds in the word am are Your turn. Tell me the sounds in the word am.
So Mr. Say gives Karen exactly the instructions she should give Lee. So we have a lot of supports built right into, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, maybe. I hope that's better for folks. So Mr. Say is really helping Karen assess with fidelity. She has instructions. Before where I started in the video was a set of tips. Some really rapid tip cards came up for her. And now he's going to do his one practice item.
Tell me any sounds you hear. Okay, here is your first word. For. Here.
So let's see what she's been doing. This is the word that Karen is giving Lee. Here's the 1 minute timer. Each measure is exactly 1 minute long. And we're seeing how, so we can get a lot accomplished in that amount of time. And then we're going to see the stop at the end. Underneath the word is the correct phonemes. And Karen would tap underneath exactly with her finger or again with a mouse, however Lee segments. In this case, he said hit, e, ear. So Karen knows it's two phonemes, but she tapped huh, e, and then when he added the third phoneme, she tapped the phoneme, it turned red for a mistake, a double tap would self-correct, and actually a triple tap would be if she made a mistake. We'll watch a little bit further. I'm going to skip forward. We'll see what happens near the end when the words get longer, and he actually does some onset rhyme. So let's watch what happens.
Ask. Ask.
So near the end,
First.
you can see how she's dragging her finger.
Bring.
Oh, that went a little too fast. You could see where she tapped the f and then dragged earth.
Bring.
She didn't segment it. The screen turned yellow to let her know it's 5 seconds before the end.
Bring. Stop.
And the minute's up. You can check her work. Every kid wants to know how they did. And that's really the key to this. You've been watching Lee's reaction and watch what happens on Karen's screen now.
Good job.
Instant scoring. So Lee scored well below the benchmark, a 23. It's also marked in red. So this is a predictive score of his future reading risk. So it's the beginning of the year of first grade. mCLASS is calculating out the predictive nature of what are the chances of him being on track at the end of first grade unless he gets significant support or some support. So for his phonemic awareness, he was well below the benchmark. On his letter names, he was at the benchmark. As Karen continues measure by measure by measure, this score over here, the composite score that we'll see on the reporting platform, will populate. At the middle of the year, it's beginning, middle, and end of year, and you can progress monitor in between. That score will come right up, and they can have a productive teacher-student conference right then and there while they're doing their one-on-one to increase the ownership of Lee's learning. Now, what if this were remote? It would be the exact same thing. Here we see that Sarah is assessing Annabelle. I'm going to play just a little snippet of this. you could see that she's got one video connection here. She was using Google Hangouts. It could have been Zoom. It could have been Microsoft Teams, any video platform she's got on half of her laptop. And she's shared a PDF of the printed materials. And she could still see and hear Annabelle. So she can see that really it's the child doing the answering. On the right-hand side of the screen is exactly the scoring screen like the one you saw for PSF, for phonemic segmentation. And let's watch just a little bit of Annabelle's responses.
O, R, U, V, C, M, O, L, H, K.
There's the self-correct. So this will continue, and once again, she'll see the score instantaneously. So the main thrust of this video is to just see that the remote is basically identical to the in-person. We provide a lot of PD materials and websites, all the PDFs. So teachers this past fall were able to completely just nail this. We had a bunch of districts that were completely remote, and they found that they still had instant data and they had great experiences with it as well. Now let's see where the data is flowing to, right? Donna was talking about the instant data, instant instruction, but I want to be able to think here through what LaDonna was talking about teacher ownership of data. So remember, the teacher witnessed how a child is reading, and now she's able to see her class. So I'm joining Andy Brown's first grade class in our teacher reporting platform. The first thing I'm looking at is the summary. So she's completed her beginning of year and middle of year, and we can see how much progress the class has made. At the beginning of the year, 2/3 of the class, 10 out of 15 students, were below the benchmark and needed either strategic support marked by yellow or intensive support marked by red. By the middle of the year, half of those students have moved to the benchmark or well above. Now, again, remember, this is predicting reading success at the end of first grade. But we don't want to send teachers to a lot of different reports. We want live discovery at the moment. So in looking down the summary report, I have every one of the students, and any column is sortable. Every number can be clicked. But let's take a quick look. We're going to investigate a little bit more. Watch Emmy, because I'm going to tell her story. She went from well below at the beginning of the year. She's made a lot of progress to below benchmark by the middle of the year. So if we look at what the report looks like right after the benchmark, here the summary changes. We don't want to just focus on the overall composite. We want to focus on the literacy skills. And so here, Ms. Brown is able to scroll down. And again, we don't want to go to 5 reports. We just want to click the overall reading risk score, the composite score. Here are the students who are in need of intensive intervention, strategic support, who are at benchmark and above and should be supported in the core. The same would happen if we're curious about the letter sounds. Sort it and see how kids are doing on the precursor skills. Remember, I mentioned that Emmy was struggling at the beginning of the year? Let's take a look at what happened in her letter sounds. Here's the exact transcript. And we're able to see, we could analyze this separately, but what I'd love to do is bring up for Emmy the phonemic awareness, exactly what we just saw with Karen and Lee, and it looks identical to in the platform. So what we see about Emmy is that she got 6 segments per minute, correct, which is way below the benchmark, and here they are. So she was doing some initial sounds, couldn't do the rest of the words, and clearly did not get very far, so she was doing it slowly. So Emmy needs a lot of work here. But if I knew that Emmy was a Spanish-speaking student at the beginning of first grade, I might look at the exact same data exactly the opposite. I might be saying, oh, in her home language, Emmy might not have the h and the w sound. And here we might be able to see that she was working on it, right? So she struggled with hear, but she nailed who. So clearly she can hear and articulate the h sound, missed on, and got the w in wave. And maybe that's why Emmy is going so slow. So if I know that background, I'm able to analyze this data really granularly down to the sub-skill item level. Samir is an example of a student who was in the red in the oral language and in the spelling, and you could see a discrete marker that he may be at risk for dyslexia. So when you do your dyslexia screening, you get that coming up as well. If we went down deeper into Emmy, we could see her historical background. This historical data, right? I only have first grade here. If she were assessed in kindergarten, you can imagine the power of a second grade teacher being able to go all the way back. The data follows the child from school to school, of course. And once again, every time you can click a number and you'll be able to see. So that second grade teacher can see how Emmy did on her word reading fluency at first grade. mCLASS goes further and does the magical analysis for every child already. When you come to the instruction tab, mCLASS will analyze every single student's results. And that will be changed every time you have new data, every benchmark or every progress monitoring. If you progress monitor 3 students, you click update. So since Andy Brown has already finished the middle of the year, right? We see that Emmy is now up to the below. And here is exactly the instruction she needs tomorrow. So mCLASS worked on the item level analysis. These are not based on scores. This is based upon that probe transcript I showed you. Here are the patterns that Emmy has at the middle of the year, how she's doing on her phonemic awareness and segmentation, how she's doing on her letter sounds. But mCLASS has figured out that from her oral reading fluency passage and her word reading fluency, she's struggling with 2-syllable words. There are lessons teachers can do with Emmy, but many teachers really find, there's a lot of data coming at them. What do I do next? So for Emmy, she should be working on words with more complex letter combinations. That's what mCLASS has surfaced as the next thing to do. Every child, Samir's well below benchmark, here's what he needs next. Anna is at the benchmark, what she needs next. Aiden is well above the benchmark, probably needs some enrichment. He should work on comprehension skills. Each child was put into a group based upon their needs. And here is Emmy's group, words with more complex patterns. When you open it up, teachers will have guidance of the pedagogy based upon phonics, explicit and systematic instruction. What do you do with this group? For the English language learners in the group, how would you adjust the lessons for their needs? The patterns in the group. And then as I click down a pattern and I come down to the bottom here, I could see that in every group you have 10 to 20 minute activities that teachers can do with the group. So Amplify Reading that LaDonna was telling us about that HEB also uses, that's the platform that I'm not talking about right now. That's when students work on their own, but teachers have instant targeted groups and lessons that they can do with every group on the spot. Every group, even the comprehension group, they get their more advanced lessons for enrichment. The data gets updated every time you progress monitor. So we won't go into the progress monitoring reports today. There's rich progress monitoring and goal setting. And instead, let's just end off the segment. By the way, if you do Amplify Reading, teachers go right from one dashboard right over to the Amplify Reading dashboard. For parents, Edel, I've neglected to mention, same idea in Spanish, just looks a little bit different. And then when you do progress monitoring, mCLASS is going to always recommend one measure, sometimes 2, typically 1 measure to progress monitor with a child, so teachers don't have to figure this out. Progress monitoring takes 2 minutes. So what you're doing for the child's perspective is 5 to 7 or so minutes, beginning, middle, and end of year, only 3 times a year. And every couple of weeks for the most needed for intervention, you do 2 minutes. For those who are in the red, in the yellow, just below the benchmark, you do this once a month for 2 minutes. And remember, they're done. It's very gentle on the kids. And then for the parents, You have letters in English and Spanish 3 times a year, beginning, middle, and end of year. Really parent-friendly language that goes through what is the assessment and how their child did. A page of activities you can do with your child. Again, the letters are also available in Spanish. And then the parents get a portal with more activities that they're able to do with their children. So I hope that that quick tour, we just touched on the teacher perspective. We really want them to analyze the data and own that outcome. And I'm going to let our colleagues at Clint chat a little bit about this, and then we'll see the district reports shortly. So please take it away, Arturo and Sylvia.
Hello, my name is Sylvia Gomez and I'm the Early Childhood Coordinator for Clint ISD. And with me is our School Improvement Officer or Coordinator, Arturo Villanueva. This was the first year using mCLASS Amplify, and we just have seen so much improvement within our students. All of the United States is really experiencing all of these gaps with student learning with phonological awareness and with phonics, because of our current situation. And having mCLASS Amplify has really helped us to fill those gaps, because the interventions are streamlined to pinpoint exactly where students are lacking, so that our teachers can go in and they do have a great resource to pinpoint and also to give the students the interventions. So that's something that we have really appreciated, and our teachers have really appreciated, that they're right there at their fingertips. We've done several trainings with teachers, with administrators, and that's something that they're very impressed with, because we used a different intervention source last year, and it would really give you just kind of like a start. It would tell you your kids are lacking in phonics, but they wouldn't tell you exactly where. So when you use these resources, you know exactly where kids need to be and what resources to use with them. So I think that they've also appreciated the use of the parent letters that you just saw, because it isn't something that we just send out to parents, and it's something that's in a teacher lingo. It's something that parents, very parent friendly, they can take it, they can use it with their child. And it's not something that's an addition, like an extension of school. It's something that, hey, let's go to the grocery store and I'm gonna see if you can read some of the labels on these cans, and things that are doable for parents. So I think our principals and our teachers were really excited about those letters, and they sent them home right away, and we're excited to get started with everything that Amplify had to offer. Mr. Villanueva, did you want to add anything that maybe I missed? Because I know I was going really quick.
Yes, ma'am. And then at the district level, one of the things that mCLASS has really helped us is with the progress monitoring of our K through second classrooms for our HP3 goals. So we're currently using the DIBELS 8 and the IDEL data for our HP3 goals to monitor the progress in those early childhood grades. And just the reports that we find on mCLASS, and it's an evolving product, and it seems like every time we meet, we're digging in a little deeper to the data. We're under the understanding that we're going to be able to dive in a little bit more with our with our special pops and so forth, which are what we need in HP3. But I mean, the service has been second to none. We constantly meet with mCLASS. We provide our feedback, and I mean, they're very receptive, and we've had a great partnership. We're still learning the program, so we're kind of glad we jumped into it this year. Next year, we'll be able to refine it a little bit more, but I think just the ease of use for our teachers has been amazing. And even though things are starting to go back to normal, quote unquote, we still see the tools are so valuable for testing on a remote platform and testing when the kids are in school. So it's been a great product for us just to get those data points that have been so hard for us to get in other, like our normal assessments. mCLASS has really come through with helping us just kind of consolidate all our data that way.
Okay, thank you, Clint. Thank you, Arturo and Sylvia, for sharing your experience. We are now going to jump into some of our leadership reports that are available on mCLASS. My name is Andrew Benish. I'm pumped to be with Texas Educators because I am a Texas educator. I live in Allen, Texas. Before coming to work for Amplify, I was an educator in both Houston ISD and Allen ISD. So let's take a look at my screen, and this is basically our leadership reporting suite, our aggregate reports. You're going to notice reports come into two categories: performance reports. So how are we doing? How are our students progressing? And fidelity reports. So as leaders, we need a simple way to see, are we utilizing this resource and are we on track for where we want to be? So I wanted to give you a preview of that. Let me jump over to the presentation. Okay, so this is an example of a fidelity report. Our usage report, and it's a completion report. I can see as a leader that I can pick up really quickly within a benchmark window. Am I moving at a pace where I'm going to be completed by the end of my window? Pick it up really quickly. I can see the district level as well as school level. So that's an example of that. Clint ISD just talked about progress monitoring. So there's a progress monitoring fidelity report. This allows me to quickly gauge, am I progress monitoring my students, depending on the category that they're currently falling into? Am I progress monitoring at the rate I intended? So quick glance, I can see how many students have not had a progress monitoring probe, how many students have had probes during certain timeframes, which as a leader allows me to have conversation and ask the questions that should be asked so that we're progress monitoring at the right cadence. Okay, so that's fidelity. The other reports that we had that I mentioned are performance reports. So how are we progressing? And so I want to show you a couple things that all of our reports have. So the first one is you are able to change parameters on how you're running the reports. I'm going to show you a little bit more detail on that here in just a second. You're also able to share these reports, put them into a PDF where they can be shared in that manner, or drop them into a CSV file. I usually think of that as an Excel file where you can manipulate the data. So filtering, we talked about filtering. This is the type of screen that you will see on all our reports. It's common across the reports, and you can see, you can segment results by a district, account, school level, class level, teacher level. You can say, I want to see all my grades and I want to see my grades separated, or I want to see them together. And then you have your student filters down here. So I can look at different ways to slice and dice the data as I'm looking at how my district and schools are doing. Let's talk a little bit about performance. Okay, so before I came to Amplify, I was a principal. And we all know that educators in general, in leadership specifically, we've got a lot on our plates. And so we've got to have reports that speak to us and that we can grasp and get that information that we need in a timely manner so that we can go support the work that needs to be done. So this is an example. We've talked about composite score. I can quickly take a look at my district's grade kindergarten scores, and I can see at beginning of year, close to 50% of my students were falling into that well below benchmark. Okay, now also as a leader, I know that composite score is important, but I also need to quickly be able to see, where am I at a skill level? Donna talked to us about skills. As a leader, I can quickly see phonemic awareness. All right, how are we doing? I've got 20% of my students at the well below benchmark level, 40% of my students at the below benchmark level, 40% at the benchmark level. Once again, so quick for me to get the data that I need so that I can effectively support my teachers, my staff, and help my students progress and get the skills that they need to become successful readers. The other thing I really like about our aggregate reports, I get that information quickly, but if I want to drill down, I can. So if I wanted to, I could click on this red bar right here, and it would show me the specific students that are currently falling into that category. Just one example of an aggregate report. Another report that I'll spend just a moment on is what we call the correlation report. This has been huge to go over and use with districts as we just finished our middle of year reporting. This report right here allows me to see how students are moving. So I can see at the beginning of the year in my district, I had 1,200 students who were in the well below benchmark category. I can quickly see that at middle of year, 61% of those students stayed there, but then I had another 39% that moved out of that category, and I can see the categories that they fell into, whether that be the yellow below benchmark, green benchmark, or blue above benchmark. Once again, very quick information that I can visually take in that allows me to do the work that needs to be done. I can look at the same thing for a benchmark category and see how my students that started at benchmark progressed. And so once again, I can see that 30% of those students stayed at benchmark. I had 44% move to above benchmark. And I also noticed that I have some students that moved out of benchmark into a lower category. Once again, I can click on one of these colors and I can see which students are falling into that category. Bottom line on our leadership reports, easy to access, easy to run, easy to get the information that I need to start to take the action and have the conversations to help our students become successful. Okay, there's leadership reports for you. Let's talk a little bit about support and training. With everything that's going on, we know when we bring a system into our district, we need the right level of support. We need the right level of training so that we can effectively use the platform that our district is choosing, in this case, mCLASS. So I just want to provide a quick highlight on a couple of the supports that we have in Texas. We have an onboarding site. So this onboarding site is going to give you the basics. It's going to give you the foundation, and that's available for you as soon as you sign up so that you know exactly how to get started. That's a good place to start, but we wanted to offer more. So the other thing that you have that becomes immediately available to you is an online self-paced course. These courses are phenomenal. I will tell you, I've referenced these courses if I need a refresher on any of our measures or how to work within the system. It's basically on-demand training, and it's divided into sections so that teachers, leaders, and staff can quickly get to the section they need to get up to speed on how to effectively use mCLASS Texas. Okay, let's say I'm in the device and I have a question. We have online help that you can get to from your device. So couple things, they have a menu and you can go directly to online help. We have a library of articles that you can search that will help you with specific questions. We also have a help window. The help window is actually content sensitive. And so it understands where you are on our platform, and it will bring you to the specific area that you're on to provide additional support and help. We have a support and resource center. So under that, we have additional articles and supports to help you. You can see even on this page, specific information about the different measures, resources on the Home Connect parent letter that we already spoke to. And we have program and technical support that you can get to 3 different ways. We have an 800 number that you can call from 6 to 6, Monday through Friday. We have a chat. So a lot of times we know we're busy, we got a lot of stuff going on. I'll use that little chat feature, and I can be working with Amplify's support team. That's available Monday through Friday, 7 to 5. And then I have an email that I could email if I have questions. So 3 different avenues to reach our program and technical support. So I want to also highlight, when I say technical support, we know what that is. How do I get this working? Or I need to sync my data. Can you support me with that? But we also have a pedagogical team, educational support team for those questions like, what is this data telling me? If the student scored 50 on PSF, what does that really mean? We have former educators that are waiting for you to call or chat or email that can help you with those types of questions. Okay, Last thing that we do in Texas. So Donna and I do a lot of these, but we provide just-in-time topics to support leaders and teachers. So we offer monthly live office hours where we cover those topics that you need to know about. I know pretty soon Donna and I will be doing a office hour on end of year dyslexia screening for kinder. But you can see we post the results, the videos, and the resources on our webpage as well. Okay. Whew, that was a lot in a short amount of time, but what I hope you picked up is leadership reports are there, very useful, get the information you need quickly. And then support, I'm exhausted from talking about all our support options. You will not be left alone in this. You truly do become part of the Amplify team, and we really want to partner with you. Given that, I'm going to pass it on to a couple of people that I've personally been working with, Matt and Demedia from Aldine.
Yeah, Andrew, when you said, whoo, I was sitting here thinking the same thing, because my word, this last 45 minutes, it's been a refresher for us, but for those of you who are just coming into learning about mCLASS, I can imagine this is sort of like information overload, because it's that dynamic of a program. mCLASS is really an amazing tool. But why I'm excited I'm here, and Demedia and I are here to talk to you, is the support that you get from Amplify is truly an amazing, amazing level of support. They are literally the best partners in the world as you embark on this. And like our earlier guest that talked, we launched this year. So in the middle of the pandemic, you know, while virtual, we took on this big journey, and we managed to do it because no matter what questions we had, no matter what we were trying to figure out, they were there within a click of a button, within a phone call. They are really there to support you. And one thing we realized is, you know, although this is newer to Texas, they've done this all over the country. So we're just new to it. They are very comfortable with this process and the system. But the very many layers that Andrew just showed really makes it very simple for you to find the information. I'm one of those, I want immediate answers. So those chat features, those calls, I'm like that. For more patient people, going back to those videos, that repository of videos, everything's in there. And so I constantly am refreshing myself when I really give myself that patience, but truly listening to Andrew and just getting back to him, you're going to have all the support you need if you choose to do this. We learned a lot by just trying it, but we always felt like no matter what, we could always come, we were supported in this process. And then what we realized is how valuable the data is. It is truly, all those reports Andrew showed you has just given us an entirely different perspective of what literacy data reporting is. We're not talking about just one data point anymore. We're talking about constantly progress monitoring and looking at the metrics in a different lens. And it's just exciting. And every time you go in there, because we're new to it, we're still learning more, but this is a great partnership to have. And if you choose to just do this journey, Amplify will be there to support you in it. And my partner in crime is Demedia Edwards, and she speaks so much more articulately. So that's why she's the closer in this conversation.
Well, thank you for that. I don't know if I deserve that or not. But I do want to say, and we have shared this with the Amplify team, that we work with many partners in our district. However, our relationship with Amplify is one that we really value, and the support, the resources, the support, I can't say it enough times, has really helped us to be able to use mCLASS in our district, and not just use it, but to gather data that helps us further the literacy work. In addition to the synchronous trainings, they also offer asynchronous trainings and office hours. In fact, they approach us and ask, as we're reaching different points in the school year, that they would like to have some office hours for teachers or for leaders. And any response or any request that we make is always honored, and the partnership is just incredible. And then the last thing I want to say about the support is that without it, I don't know that we would have been able to do as much as we were able to do during this first year. With all the circumstances of what's going on in the world, with just having partners that are willing to come to the table and say, okay, we're getting ready for middle of year data collection. So let's think this out and be sure that we have a solid plan. Like, that's the kind of support that they provided to us. And that's how we're able to do as much as we were able to do. So Amplify is incredible. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt and Demedia. We appreciate you sharing your experience. Okay, so I know we're coming close to the end of the time, but we wanted to have a little bit of time where we could answer any questions that have come up. So I want to bring in the Texas Education Agency team as well as the rest of the Amplify team back for this piece. Natalie and Scott, have we had questions, specific questions come across?
We do. We had a request coming in from Stacy to see one of the fluency measures. Fortunately, I've had the chance to set up that video. So give me a moment and I'll share my screen.
Great, Alan. I also know that Natalie was going to address the group and say that we'd be happy to stay on a few minutes after if you had some specific questions that don't get addressed during this time. So that, for instance, like Alan can show that example that was requested. Natalie, I see you now. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I think Natalie's having some audio issues. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
So yeah, just to echo what Ray said, that we will hang out here as long as we need to make sure that you all get whatever you need. And as long as the mCLASS, or I'm sorry, as long as the Amplify folks are willing to hang on, we'll hang on with them and do whatever we can to get you guys the information you need.
Yeah, I will reiterate, Scott, that if you have questions that you think of later because you've gotten a whole lot of information, send us a note at texas@amplify.com and we'll respond to you. That's probably the most efficient way also, if you wanted to do things, and just from prior experience, do things like, wow, I heard this and I've got a question and maybe some of my colleagues would like to see a presentation as well. We're happy to do 15-minute, 20-minute, hour-long presentations to meet with your teams and answer more specific questions. These things, while they have a state impact, they can be very regional or very local, and you have some very specific needs that you want to address, so we're happy to address those as well. I will say, in terms of the things that we're hearing with feedback relative to the program and sort of how districts are using it, you heard from your colleagues across the state, and thank you all for doing that. But we're hearing things like precision in our teachers' ability to make decisions and have impact relatively quickly. That's saving people a lot of time, and it's actually closing the chasm between knowing something and being able to act on something. We're also hearing things like equity, where all of my teachers have access to the same information and they can actually make instructional decisions very quickly, regardless of the amount of time that they have in a classroom or how they're dealing with instruction, whether remotely or hybrid or in any of the other configurations that we have. And then last, the whole idea around the grouping of students has been, for us, a happy surprise. We knew that that was really great, and we told people it would be really great. Our 350 LEAs are telling us that teachers are saying, that's really great. We appreciate that because it saves, it takes us out of having to be subjective, and it gives us very precise data to act on and then go impact instruction. So I'll pause there for questions if there are any that you want to toss my way, Natalie or Scott.
Sure, there was a question that was just entered. Does the mCLASS diagnostic for grades 3 through 6 follow the same design as the K through 2?
It absolutely does. And that's one of the great values here, is that you have a consistent platform and approach across K6. While K2 is what's adopted, it is available to you K6. The measures might be different at the upper grades just because of natural testing requirements, right? But the platform and the data set is exactly the same. Great question.
There was a general question about mCLASS math and what's available there. And I believe Krista responded that there was. I didn't know if you wanted to elaborate on that at all.
Terrific. No, again, set up a call with us and we'll happily share it with you. That's also been a happy surprise. Nice tool, lower grades. It's great for diagnostic, and those that have adopted it really enjoy having it to be a collaborative component with their literacy component. Let me also say, because I know there have been some questions around Texas home learning. So the way that we look at mCLASS is, and in Aldine, that is a case in point, is as a cornerstone to your literacy solution, right? This is the diagnostic. This is what tells you the issues, the strengths, and all of the kinds of things that you know to be able to take action on. But then it's connected. You may have seen the buttons available on Alan's dashboard to amplify reading and intervention and some of these other pieces. And so the whole idea here is that you'd have a continuum of services around that early literacy piece so that you can have a significant impact, whether kids are below grade level, on grade level, or above. So again, if you wanted to reach out to us, we'd be happy to show you what that looks like. The whole concept here is to save teacher time and student impact, right? So we have the greatest impact with the least amount of time or effort on a teacher's part. And so the fact that they can conduct this assessment in 5 to 7 minutes and from that drive forward a whole agenda that helps students succeed is really powerful. All right, if there aren't any other questions, Alan, do you want to show that example that was requested?
Sure. Let's do that. All right, so what I'm showing you is another video similar to the one that you saw before for oral reading fluency. I think that's what Stacy was, actually Stacy let me know privately that that's what she was asking about. So just that setup again is we're picking up in the middle of the assessment. Karen is scoring on her device, which is the lower left of the screen. Here you can see that Lee is reading from a printed text. It's oral reading fluency is how much can you read of a connected text in 1 minute, and we want the accuracy and the fluency scores. So he's actually a pretty good reader. So we're just going to show a short clip, but you'll see how it works.
In the snow, he stopped and started and stared. He thought he was seeing things green in the snow. And in the snow, it could be what it seemed to be, could it? He bent down in the snow and quickly dug it out.
So it's pretty straightforward. As you could see, the kinds of things we were talking about before. She taps a word that he makes a mistake, turns red. He self-corrected on stared. He first said started, then stared. And if we go near the end, we'll see that it's going to do the instant scoring.
What was it like to lose 50 yards? Stop.
So she indicates where he got up to. And you have the score. Before we were saying that Lee was below, but in fact, he actually happens to be a classic first grader who's reading really, really well, but actually struggles with his phonemic awareness. And so he probably needs enrichment in general, but if you want to make sure that he doesn't have trouble further on as the texts get harder and harder, it's probably still a good idea for Karen to keep an eye on that phonemic awareness. So it's the same basic idea that you've seen before, quick, 1 minute, easy to use, but also very, very rigorous. So we'll stop there and see if we have other questions.
There's a question about intervention and is there an additional cost? So what you saw Alan present was mCLASS. He showed you the instruction tab that has activities that are short mini lessons and activities to close gaps quickly. Those are included. We also, you saw the button for Amplify Reading at K2, that's also included, does not cost the district any additional resource. Grades 3 through 5, you would pay out of pocket or work with us to find a solution that fits you. Intervention, that's for that group of kids that you've administered the assessment, you've done the lessons and activities to close gaps, you've used the supplemental tools, and still you have kids that need that deep intervention. That's an additional purchase. It does draw from the same data set, it does align with mCLASS, and it works all within the same package, but that is an additional purchase.
We've had a couple more questions come in. One is, are fluency passages fiction/nonfiction or a mix? Is there any specific pattern as to which genre they receive depending on grade or time of year?
Okay, I'll toss that to Krista because I see her nodding her head.
Yeah, I think Alan just responded in chat, but yes, it's a mix of both types of fiction and nonfiction, and they're not specifically aligned to any specific time of year. When the research was done, we tested, or not we, but the University of Oregon really tested multiple passages at each time of year and picked the one that was most predictive of future performance. Yes, there are activities in Spanish as well. Scott, do you just want me to read down these, or?
There was a question from a little bit earlier that asked, is every section of the assessment timed? If so, can you allot extra time for those students who are ADD or ADHD?
Yeah, we have a whole group of approved accommodations that we are happy to share with you, and timing for certain subpopulations is certainly one of them.
I actually received a question via email about the different pricing options and how you can get more information about that. Is there somewhere that you'd like to point them or a contact for that?
Yeah, the easiest place is to send us an email and let us know what they're thinking of. And the reason for that is we want to know what the configuration is, the number of students, number of teachers, and really have an understanding globally of what we're talking about. And we can provide very specific pricing.
Okay, I'll share, Krista, maybe you can hit this question. It was asked, are the fluency passages decodable texts?
So Alan, I think that they take into account different textual features. Typically, you know, the decodable words or common words are, you know, sight words. So it's not just decodable, includes some other vocabulary that students would be expected to have learned by that point in time.
I haven't seen any new questions. Oh, here we go. Is the phonics aligned to a scope and sequence? Are the phonics skills assessed in a sequence?
Yes, if we look at something like the nonsense word fluency, which is looking at, you know, the main part of decoding, it starts with VC and CVC words, and both within a form and over time. It progresses kind of how you would expect to more complex letter combinations. We can share those specifications with you by grade and time of year, but it does progress to more complex letter combinations, you know, across K3. So that kind of allows us to go beyond the typical nonsense word, CVC words, and really get at kids' skills who are really able to be challenged. So you'll see, like, around the area of where we expect kids to perform at benchmark, they'll start to get more difficult words. So those kids that can go further will get those more complicated letter sound combinations.
Great. There's another question about phonological awareness skills being differentiated by grade level.
Yes, similarly, different, more complex combinations get introduced in the upper grades. So there would be blends, for example, kind of towards the, I think, middle and end of first grade.
Okay, and could we share examples of the fluency passages or grade level?
Sure. I think the best way, Alan, or I can pull it up, is we have a website that we created with remote resources that allowed teachers to download all of the materials so that they could display them on their screen. So we can grab that website for you quickly, and you can take a look at the passages there. It links you out to the University of Oregon's website. You just have to kind of say, okay, that you will agree to their policies to take a look at those passages. Let me get that site for you.
Alan posted it in the chat.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
A couple additional questions have come in. I noticed the font could be tricky for some students. Example, letter identification section of the test. Can you choose the font that your materials are printed in?
I'm looking at
Alan,
you.
you want me to take that one too? Yeah, I think this is a interesting thing. The fonts are always an interesting topic. The way that the University of Oregon went about choosing the font was looking at the ones that are, they took just kind of dyslexia screening into account. And so, you know, that was part of their selection, and there were kind of a limited number of fonts that are recommended in that instance. So I think it's really only maybe a couple things that are unique that are kind of outliers. For example, the letter A in kindergarten we hear about, but other than that, it really has not been problematic in practice or in interpretation. Fonts are always tricky, huh?
I'm going to answer that one, Krista.
Yeah.
That when they were doing that research, they were really looking at two things. So we've heard this feedback this year. It does come up periodically. Part of the current font, the font, you cannot change the font because that was where the research and validation came from. But they were looking at two key factors. One is that other fonts also trick up kids on different letters. So they were looking at the research on the prior versions of Dibbles to see where there may have been letters that some kids were struggling with. And so, you can't please everybody, I guess, is the answer. But what they really were finding is that a lot of fonts used in assessments are not dyslexia friendly at all. So it's not just that the dyslexia screening they were looking for, but those students who really may have dyslexia were struggling because of the prior use of fonts, and they chose from within a select group for that purpose. And I'll take the one about the kindergarten dyslexia screening components. So great, Jennifer, thank you for noting that about spelling. Spelling will take longer than the 5 to 7 minutes. We generally talk about that for the teacher administered measures at K1, and then it gets a little shorter at 2. Spelling will take a little bit longer, and on that one you have a choice depending on how you feel about the tech savviness of your remember it's end of year kindergarten. So you can either do it where you sit one-on-one with the child and you help them out. A lot of classrooms, you do it during station time, where say maybe 4 or 5 students are doing on their own online, but you're able to keep an eye on them. And then of course, if you have a savvy group, you can have a lot of time savings, because remember, it's the end of the year if you want to do the class doing it on their own. But I think we tend to lean towards the one-on-one or the small group administration. It's still the end of the year at kindergarten, right?
Yes. I don't see any more.
Anything else anyone would like to ask? We've got a lot of brain power here available to help you out.
Good news is we're staying in Texas. We're not going anywhere, so you can always reach out to us. I will add too, if you're thinking or your district is thinking of making the move to mCLASS, and again, this is just from prior experience last summer and fall, the sooner you let us know, the easier it is. We have to meet with you and we have to do some rostering work and start to put a plan in place for training and implementation. So the sooner, even if you're not planning to use it until BOI, the sooner you can give us that insight, the better I think the experience will be for you and your teams, so we can have a sort of a less protracted implementation as has happened in the past, just because districts waited till the last minute. We actually had districts calling us in October that they needed to get it done for obvious reasons, right? If we were all behind, and then we had to expedite that. But we'd rather not have to expedite. We'd rather just work with you and get a plan in place and then help you be successful. It won't impact you negatively in any way.
Natalie, would you share the contact information slide again?
Donna, can you do it? Or Alan, somebody, it's the same PowerPoint. I will say, when Donna shares that, the mCLASS Texas website as well has a list of ongoing webinars. If you have anybody else who'd like to see it, just jump on a webinar. Those are happening between now and May. So you're welcome to join us at any time and just hop on, ask questions, or share it with your colleagues.
And as Natalie mentioned earlier, and I'm sure she'd reiterate now if she were able to speak with us, if you have questions beyond the scope of this particular presentation and this particular tool, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to support you in any way that we can. And we've had a great experience so far with the Amplify team, and we've had great communication with them, and everything's been going really well. So we're going to do what we can, and we're really excited about this next year. Hopefully we have better conditions in which we're working, but whatever we find ourselves in, we'll make the best of it.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Natalie.
All right, y'all have a great rest of your day, and we will probably speak to you at some point in the future. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amplify team.
Appreciate it.